Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and today I have this Pastel Nuvo Shimmer Powder Butterfly Slimline card to share with you. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to create my base first, and I like to take a full piece of cardstock and then I trim off 4 inches, which when scored will give me a 3.5 by 8.5 inch slimline base. That is my preferred slimline size. I don't believe there's any right or wrong size for slimline so much as long as it fits in a number 10 envelope, business envelope. That's pretty much the only rule to it. So this is just kind of my preferred size. And then I did score it there in the middle to give me the 3.5 by 8.5 inch card. And then I am going to cut down 2 pieces of HammerMill Cardstock here as well. This is so that I can create some layers. I am going to kind of mat this, although it's not the same mat as I would usually do if you follow my videos. I'm going to use some WaffleFlower Slim Lacy Layers dies. You can see them here. And I'm going to use the 2 largest of the dies. And this is kind of just going to create some really cool texture in the background of my card. It's going to be very subtle because it's going to be white on white, but it just adds a little something extra, which I really like. So I used some mint tape just to adhere down my layers to my cardstock. And then I'm going to put these through my Gemini. Now I have a full-size Gemini. I use Gemini Jr plates because I find them way easier to use because my desk space is not huge. So the long plates, you need a lot more space to get them to go through the machine. So I like to use junior sized plates, and you can put slimline sized dies through a junior plate. So that is perfect. You saw that it took up the whole magic mat there when I used it to put it through, but it doesn't matter because it fits perfectly because I believe it's 8.5 inches exactly. So it fits, like it just fits this piece of cardstock, but that's all that it needs to do, so I'm happy with it. And then I did put through the lacy layer as well, and then I just cut them out. So this is going to be kind of monochrome, this part. I mean, the colors are going to come in when we bring in the Nuvo Shimmer powders, which we're going to do here in a second. So this is a full-sized sheet of distress watercolor cardstock that I just cut in half because it's easier. And then I'm going to tape it down to a hardboard. Now, you don't necessarily need to do this. However, because I wanted to add tons and tons of water to my panel, because I wanted a more pastel look with these colors, you don't need them to be pastel. You could, of course, add less water and have them be more vibrant, but I really wanted them to kind of be a little more subtle. You could do this any way you want to do it. You could do this with watercolors. You could do this with like ink sprays. You could do whatever you want to use. I just have had requests to use my Nuvo Shimmer powders in different ways. So I thought this would be a really fun card to do that on. And then I have 3 colors here. I have Cherry Bomb, Blue Blitz, and Solar Flare. And you're going to see that when I add the water, because I'm adding so much water, the cardstock actually bows in the middle. So it kind of lifts itself up on the 2 edges, and then I kind of end up with a big puddle of color in the middle. You're going to see that here in a second when I start adding the water. And it's because I added so much water. And this is why I taped it down to a hardboard. Excuse me, because I knew that I was going to have a struggle with the paper staying flat. So this is kind of the attempt at this. So you see that I have a huge puddle of water in the center, and I just used a clean piece of paper towel to kind of clean that up. And I am going to sop up some of what's in the center, so that's going to kind of take away some of that vibrancy. So I did end up adding a little bit more color in. Now keep in mind with these, they kind of end up looking like a hot mess. Like right now, this background kind of looks a bit atrocious, but if you let them dry and let them do their magic, they end up being stunning. So I did use my finger there just to break up any little pools of color that were still together. And then I set this aside to dry. And now I'm going to bring in the Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Butterflies stamps, and we're going to stamp those on a piece of vellum with Versamark ink. And then I'm going to coat it in some Brutus Monroe Gilded embossing powder, which is their gold, because I thought that this would look really pretty. So we kind of have this pastel color palette with the Nuvo Shimmer powders, and then we have gold and white. And if you guys have been on my channel, you know how much I love gold and white. Like they're just 2 of my favorite I would say colors, although I don't know that they're quite colors, but they're two of my favorite shades or colors. And I just think that they always turn out stunning. So I stamped out the images on some vellum, and then we're going to heat set this gold embossing powder over top. And then we're going to layer these over top of the butterflies, which you will have seen in the image from the beginning there, because you know what we're trying to achieve here. But I had this idea, and I really thought the Nuvo Shimmer powders would lend itself well to this kind of idea. So I am going to show you heat setting this gold embossing powder because it always looks like magic to me. It doesn't matter how many times I heat set embossing powder, especially the metallics. This just always looks like magic to me, and I just love it. It always makes me smile when I get to watch the embossing powder melt, especially metallic ones. I just think they turn out so stunning. And then I did tip it in the light just to make sure that I had heat embossed everything. And I did also preheat my embossing tool just so that it wouldn't warp the vellum. So just for like 30 seconds or so, I preheated the tool and then I brought it to the vellum. And then here you can see that I have the matching dies for this set. This is probably one of my favorite Simon's stamp sets. There's two that I go back to all the time. This one and the Beautiful Flowers set, and I just love them both, and I just consistently use them again and again and again. It doesn't seem to matter how many times I use them. And they're older stamp sets by Simon, but I love them. So I, of course, had to invest in the dies. So we're going to remove the painter's tape now. And you're going to see that this kind of still looks a bit like a hot mess. That's because it's not quite dry. It's mostly dry, but not quite. So I do end up off camera running my heat tool over it just to make sure that everything is dry, fully dry before I put it into the Gemini, because I want to cut these out. So at this point I have dried it completely, and now I'm going to put it through my Gemini with those same butterfly dies because I want to create the background of the vellum pieces here. So it's going to be kind of like a subtle pop of color, but it's so fun when you actually look at the card. I'm not sure that the camera really does it justice, but you're going to see here when we pop out all these butterflies, how stunning are these? Like, they're so pretty, and they're a more pastel-esque color palette. I love them. I love this card. I love how it turned out. I think that it's one of my favorite cards that I've made recently, because it turned out so pretty. And then I did bring in some Barely Art glue here, and I'm just going to adhere down the centers of the butterflies to each of its bases. And I kind of just pinch them with my fingers. I make sure that they line up, and then I just pinch them with my fingers. And then you kind of saw there that I had an idea of a layout for the card kind of laid out on that lacy layer. I end up changing it a little bit when we actually go to adhere things down, but that was kind of my general idea. And I didn't add a sentiment to the front of this card. Now, you absolutely could. I chose not to, simply because I love how it looked and I didn't really want to add one. I do stamp out a sentiment on the inside of the card though. So this card has a sentiment, it's just not on the front of the card because I didn't want to take away from how subtly beautiful this card is. I am in love with this card. I don't know if I'm going to part with it. Do you guys ever have that? You make something, like I see my cards in my head, and then when I sit down to make them, sometimes they turn out exactly how I saw them. Sometimes they take a crazy turn and we go in a completely different direction. And every once in a while, they turn out better than what I saw in my head. And this one was one of those. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to part with it, but I am crazy in love with this card, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. So I hope that you love it too. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know what you think of this card. So I did take out the gold watercolor from my Finetec Pearlescent watercolor set, and I just wanted to splash a couple of splashes on the background of this gold just to bring in a little more gold to the design. Now, granted, all of the top of the butterflies are gold, so you don't necessarily need more gold. It's just that I happen to love it, so I wanted a little bit of splashes. And this also adds a little bit of texture into the background because the only thing that's going on it is the butterflies. So I did want a little added texture. And then I did adhere the top layer down. It's the full front of the card, so I just adhered it down with my Nuvo Deluxe glue. This is the replacement to the weird pasty one I had that other week. The local ladies here are really good, so I told them about that weird pasty one, and they just replaced it with one they had in the store, so that was pretty awesome. So this is my brand new one. And then for the lacy layer, I really wanted to pop it up and give it a little more dimension. So I brought in, this is the Big Momma foam tape from Simon's Stamp, and now it's called Big Momma because the roll is huge, but the foam tape is very thin. It's actually thinner than the other one that I use all the time. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to remember what it is. The 3M foam tape. It's thinner than the 3M foam tape. So it gives you a very subtle amount of lift, but you still end up with some dimension. So by far my favorite foam tape. It's actually less expensive than the 3M foam tape as well. At least for me being in Canada, it's less expensive as well. So that's also with the exchange rate and everything, shipping, everything, it's actually less expensive than the 3M foam tape is for me. So I quite enjoy it. So I'm going to cover the whole back of my lacy layer there and then adhere it down. And I got a little off center, but again, I think that's pretty difficult to notice, so I'm not too concerned about it. And then now we're going to adhere down all of the butterflies. And I am going to adhere the color layer completely to the card. I chose to left the wings free to pop up, but I want the base to be adhered really well so that it can't go anywhere. So when you slide it in an envelope and whatnot, the butterflies aren't trying to really shift on you. It's just that the wings have movement to them. And you're going to see here in a second, I'm also going to kind of prop them all up to give them a little added dimension and depth, just because it adds a little something extra to the card. So I know I've already said this, but I am super in love with this card. I'm staring at it. It's sitting on the desk right now beside me as I do this voiceover, and it's just so dang pretty. I'm in love with it. Anyway, so I did adhere all of my butterflies down, and you see that I kind of changed the layout a little bit, but I only adhered 5. There are 6 butterflies in this stamp set, and I saved 1, and it can go on the inside when I get there, but I only adhered 5 because odd numbers are kind of my jam, and I think that they're always visually more appealing. And then I did prop up the wings here. You can see that I'd either put my finger in the middle to make sure the body didn't try to lift, and then I'd kind of prop up the wings, or I'd tip one and then kind of prop the other one. Now, granted, once this goes in an envelope, they will kind of flatten out again, but this kind of just gives you more pops of color from underneath the wings, which I think look really pretty. And then I used a stamp set from the same beautiful butterflies for the sentiment there, and it just says, "I can't wait to see how far you fly," which I think is just a super great motivational quote, and I just think it really goes well with these really pretty butterflies. And then I did bring in one last butterfly there. That is the 6th butterfly, and I just adhered it beside the message. And again, the wings are not adhered down, but I didn't prop these up because I need the card to close nicely. And I added some white pearls because why the heck not? These are probably my favorite embellishment right now. They go with everything, and they always just add a little bit more elegance, and I love that. So these are the Arctic Breeze Pearls by Studio Katya, which I'm going to probably have to purchase some more from because I'm just so in love with them. And then here's a close-up look. The pictures and the camera don't quite do justice to the Nuvo Shimmers underneath because, of course, they're a shimmer powder, so they have an insane amount of shimmer to them. You don't quite get it there. And I did adhere a couple of strips of leftover from after I cut the butterflies out to the inside because I didn't want to waste it. So that is the card I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to know what you think. Do you love it as much as I do? What are your thoughts? I'd love to know. Please leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.